And guys, open up your Bibles to Psalm 91.
Let's get it, bro.
Take us there, bro.
Psalm 91. Any technical difficulties over there, Zeke? You know, I want to play a little song for you if we can.
Come on.
If Zeke's ready. Maybe you know this song.
Zeke is
You know that song, Soak Up the Sun, amen. I think if we're going to have a nice summer, we ought to soak up the sun, and that's our title this morning. Soak up the S-O-N, not the S-U-N, amen. It doesn't matter if you get a tan if you're not close to God. So I'm preaching already, I'm sorry. Psalm 91. Psalm 91. And we're going to get a few points. You know, I have 3 points for us that I want to use to really lift up the South region and kind of talk about what I've summarized, what I've been able to gather the last few years. And I think these are areas that we can soak up from Jesus. These are things that Jesus embodies, and these are things we can soak up to as we aim to live like Him and imitate Him. Read Psalm 91 with me in verse 1. It says, "Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty." Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High. You know, in a couple other translations it says, whoever dwells in the secret place. That sounds a little cooler than the shelter. Shelter doesn't have a great connotation today, but a secret place, you know, like a hiding spot. You know what I mean? Like your fort. It's a little place to go get away. And I notice it says, he who dwells in the secret place is protected and with God, not he who visits.
Come on, bro.
So I'm preaching already. Okay, this is my last sermon. Let's
go,
have fun.
Caleb.
Not he who visits. Like, I visited the secret place and I go in and I go out. He's like, no, you got to dwell there.
Come on, bro.
A consciousness of God. Are you with me right here?
Yeah.
We got to soak Him up this morning. Let's go to John 17. Let's look at Jesus' prayer. I just want to open up with a couple verses and then we'll get into our points. But we got to look at Jesus' prayer in John 17. This popped out to me recently about all the things we see Him pray about. Because He obviously prays for unity and He prays for the future believers and He prays for the disciples. But then He says this special phrasing I never quite noticed in John 17, verse 24. What does Jesus want for all of us? John 17, verse 24. The Bible says, "Father, I want those that you have given me to be with me where I am and to see my glory. The glory that you've given me because you've loved me before the creation of the world." He said, God, this is a big prayer of mine. He said, all the people you've given me, my prayer is that they would be with me. Well, where is Jesus? He's in heaven with God, right? And He's sitting at the right hand. He's at the feet of the throne with the Father. And He's like, man, I want everybody to get there. I want everybody to be in the throne room. I want everybody to be with me. I want everybody to see my glory and undergo a glory themselves. And then He says this one phrase, says, because you loved me before the creation of the world.
Wow.
This is a really thought-provoking thing. Before the creation of the world, God loved Jesus. God is a triune God. So we believe in a triune God, right? We don't believe in a Unitarian God. We believe in a Trinitarian God. So if there was a Unitarian God, then He would not have anybody to love. He would not have an affection or a love to pour out on anyone before creation. Are you with me? Right. He was, but He is a Trinitarian God. And before the creation of the world, there was an affection for the Son, and the Son had an affection and a respect for the Holy Spirit, and they just were sharing it, and they had a nice little triune fellowship. Right. God was able to sustain Himself and love Himself and show love to His three entities. Are you with me right here?
Come on,
I know this is mind-blowing. Yeah. Before the creation of the world, He was enjoying Himself. We don't know when that was. The angels were created, so the angels were not with that. There was God. The triune God was Himself. Was it 1 billion years ago? Was it 900 billion years ago? Was it 999 billion? You would get to a thing called out of numbers. If you were to try to track how long God has just been before the creation of the world. And then at some point they create angels. We don't know how long that lasted before Satan turned and fell. Are you with me? We know that when he fell, it was about time, close to Genesis 1 is when the earth was created. He created the earth and then sent Satan to the earth. So we know the fall had to happen in the early of Genesis 1.
Right.
But all that Jesus can recall was, all those years you loved me. All those years when it was just us. And it was just us. And he's like, I want the disciples to have that.
Come on, Caleb.
All those years. Before there was ever chaos. Are you with me right here?
Yeah.
He says, before there was ever shenanigans. Before there was ever anything. He says, when we needed nothing. But you had a desire and you had a dream and you wanted to create and so we created the angels and then we created people and you created the earth and man, you've given me so many amazing people to fellowship with, and man, I just want them to have that. I want them to have what I have. I want them to be with me. I want them to have a glory, and I want them to feel the love that I felt from you before the creation of the world.
Come on.
That's what he wants for you this morning. Do you want to soak him up?
Yeah.
I want to soak up Jesus. I want to soak up that Son, because if I soak up the Son, I'm going to be soaking up the Father's love. Are you with me?
Come on,
Point number
Caleb.
1, slip away to the secret place. Let's go to Luke 5. If we're going to embody a few things Jesus did and soak him up and what he was all about, point 1, slip away to the secret place. We're going to look at we're going to look at 2 little verses here, but it says a lot in these 2 verses. Luke 5, verse 15. The Bible says, the news about him spread all the more. So the crowds of people came to hear him and to be healed of their sicknesses. But notice this, it says in verse 16. But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. For a long time, I only read usually verse 16. Oh, Jesus would often withdraw to lonely places. But I never understood the context of verse 15. There was a desire of the people in verse 15. But there was a reality that Jesus was doing in verse 16 that didn't make verse 15 happen very often. Notice this. It says, like, people heard about him. They wanted to go to him. They wanted to bring their sick, but Jesus was often withdrawn to a lonely place and praying. So that's like me, I don't know how many times in the last couple of years I was like super hungry right after church. Yeah. Drive to Chick-fil-A. I'm in the line. I'm waiting there. I'm starting to get upset. I'm like, I thought you people were Christian. Somebody needs to answer the intercom here. But then I realized they're closed on Sundays. So I wanted to go get my number 1 with the lemonade. But they were closed. So it says what Jesus was filled. This is not the morning here, folks. He says the people were trying to find him, get their sick healed, meet him, hear him, talk to him, but he was unavailable. But he often withdrew to lonely places. You know, Luke is writing this. Luke knows how to be specific. So he would have told you the place if he knew the place. Why didn't it say he went to the shoreline or the mountainside? It's because it was literally a lonely place. How do we know it was a lonely place? They tried looking for him. And they're like, he is alone right now. The Bible also says the word often. Often. Yeah. He slipped away often to the secret place. This could be 10 minutes. This could be 15 minutes. This could be... I remember early on this year, I started calling them power hours. And slip away for an hour. And it's a little bit risky, but this helps you spiritually. Yeah, it does. In the middle, it says often. So Luke would have said, once a day he would just disappear. He would have said once a day. But apparently it was more than once a day. It was enough to be often. Yeah. Like, I often snack. I often drink coffee. I often tried different donut shops around Long Beach. And without you knowing, I crammed donuts. You know, the bear claws just get launched. But I often sneak away, I do a lot of things often. I check social media often. There's a new app on my phone, that tells you how much FaceTime you have on each app. And I'm like, that's pretty often. But Jesus, if we want to soak him up, he often, not in the morning quiet time, often outside of his morning quiet time, withdrew to go pray. Yeah. He was cultivating intimacy with the Father before he would spend eternity with him. He just missed him.
Wow. Come on, Caleb.
He's a part of him, but he left us an example. I want to inspire you to often withdraw, to soak him up, to slip away to the secret place. What does this mean? It means that I think for me, the most safety I feel is when I'm borderline being unsafe. Yeah. When I leave my phone at home, I leave my wallet at home. I get in the car, tell no one where I'm going before my wife is conscious. And I go, and if I got in an accident, no one would know where I was. And that level of unsafety makes you unsettled. But it makes me actually feel alone with God.
Yeah, come on.
I actually feel like, God, it's me and you. No one in the world knows where I am but me and you. We're alone. And I slip away to a secret place. You got to find a secret place.
Yeah.
You got to get to a place where no one can tap your shoulder.
Yeah.
No one can buzz your phone. No one can give you a notification or a reminder. No, you don't want to be responsible with this. You know what I mean? You don't want to be irresponsibly slipping away in the middle of the day for a few hours. You know what I mean? Gosh, you had 3 Bible studies you skipped, man. What the heck? We don't want you slipping away at improper times, but be mindful that this was of Jesus. He often withdrew to a lonely place, a place he couldn't be found. You have the authority to leave your house on your lunch break if you got 10 minutes and just slip away and go pray. Slip away and go pray. I can't emphasize this enough, guys. This helped Jesus. I believe that so much temptation could be cut out of our lives. Right. So much anxiety could be cut out of our lives. Right. So much more thoughtfulness and reminders that things God wants us to do could be cut out of our lives when we would slip away to the secret place. It said he did it often. Right. You know, I want to lift up the South, guys. I've just seen such a spiritual elevation in the South region. You know, it's not that you guys were unspiritual when I got here a year ago, but all I'm saying is I've just seen you fall. You were in love with Jesus. You fell deeper in love with Jesus.
Yeah, come on.
To think that the fellowship is not consisting of what are you eating for lunch and what is the newest thing you bought and what's your little gadget. But I'm hearing as I'm passing by, man, tell me more about that. What did you get out of your quiet time? What have you been reading? What have you been studying? How has God been helping you in prayer? Let's go on a prayer walk. You see Tiffany and Bonilla running around asking everybody how their quiet time's going? And Jesus asking, hey, how's your quiet time? You're walking with God, right? You know, and that's now the culture. That's the culture now. And that you guys care how each other are doing spiritually.
Yes.
And you love, and we're getting to the Acts 2:47. It says they just enjoyed the favor of all the other people.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, I'm kind of struggling. I'm not doing that good, but I'm really happy that you're doing good. Yeah. That's where they got. Yeah. And I think that can only come about with a people that often slip away to the secret place. I just want to inspire you. You feel like you're doing great in your quiet times. You got to go a little deeper.
Yeah.
You know, I just am trying to practice this more and more in my quiet times. Just 5 more minutes. Just 5 more minutes.
Yeah.
Let me just read another chapter. Just read another little page. Okay, just pray for one more person. Just pray for another thing. Just wait and pray a little bit more. And you'd be so surprised that you get spiritually stretched.
Yeah.
And be so surprised that same bandwidth that you stretch yourself in your times with God falls over into all these areas of your life. So suddenly your bandwidth to communicate with people is much greater. Sometimes your patience just grows greater. Your ability to disciple people grows greater. You ever felt like you just walked into church and you had nothing in the tank? You saw something, you're like, I'm not going to deal with that. I'm not going to deal with that. I'm not going to say hi to them. I'm not going to do this. And that means you need to slip away.
Yeah.
You need to slip away and unload some stuff into your heart. And you're allowed to do this spiritually.
Come on,
do you want to soak up the sun and slip away to the secret place?
Come on, bro.
Point number 2, one thing Jesus was all about. Point 2, make memories on the move. Let's go to Matthew 14.
Come on, Caleb.
You know, Jesus was able to make some memories. You know how we know he made memories? Is because illiterate people clearly remembered everything he said he did.
Come on.
And it says in John 21 that actually there was so much more we could have written. In fact, if we could have written it all down, books would fill the whole earth.
Right.
Jesus was a memorable man, and he made memories with his people.
Right.
We ought to be a people that make memories. Look at this. It starts sad, but it ends triumphantly. Mark 14 and verse 12. John's disciples came and took his body and buried it. And then they went and told Jesus that John the Baptist was beheaded. Verse 13. When Jesus heard what had happened, he withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place. Where do we think Jesus is going? He's slipping away to the secret place. You know, you're allowed to slip away when you feel minor anxiety or when you feel minor gratitude. But you definitely need to slip away when you have a loss in your life. You definitely need to slip away when you're feeling heaviness in your heart. You definitely got to slip away. A phone call to a person is secondary to calling your father. Are you with me right here? I like to call people and inform them about what me and Dad talked about. But I don't call people first. He said, I got to slip away. Because he heard that John died. Now notice this. This is where the curveball happens. He's in his ministry day. Curveball number 1, John the Baptist died, sadly. Look at this. It says, he goes to slip away privately by boat. Hearing of this, the crowds followed him on foot from the towns. When Jesus landed and saw the large crowd, he had compassion on them and healed their sick. Curveball number 2. So curveball number 1, he's like, oh my gosh, my friend John the Baptist died. A close brethren died. So that's curveball number 1. He wasn't expecting that. Then he goes to go pray. You ever wanted to go to your quiet time and you get interrupted and something else kind of comes in?
Yeah.
He didn't dismiss what he needed to deal with in his heart. He had to delay it. He had to separate it. So that's curveball number 2. Then there's a crowd that comes and these people are sick and they need healing. So he has compassion on them, still having a bunch on his heart, and he spends time with them. This goes on the whole evening. In verse 15, as the evening approached, the disciples came to him and said, this is a remote place. It's already getting late. Send the crowds away so that they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food. Then Jesus replied. Jesus has had a couple curveballs today, so he replies with this in verse 16. They don't need to go away. You give them something to eat.
Yeah.
He's like, I've had a couple curveballs. Here's a curveball for you guys. Why don't you feed the people? You know what I mean? Why don't you join in the struggle? You know what I mean? Suffering and anxiety usually can't be extinguished, but it can be delegated and it can be shared with other people right here. So he says, you take care of it. But they didn't know that this was going to be one of the greatest memories they had. If you keep reading, they feed 5,000 people with just a little bread and a little fish. 5,000 people. What a memory. They got to remember Jesus by this. Wow, he gets the news that John the Baptist dies. He tries to go pray, gets interrupted, ends up healing people, and feeding 5,000 people.
Come on.
That's how they remember Jesus. Further, it says after they fed the people in verse 22, immediately Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side while he dismissed the crowd. After he dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. So he got the news that John the Baptist died, and he said, okay, I can't deal with this right now. I need to delay it. Don't just dismiss it. Don't stuff it. He didn't stuff it, but he says, I got to deal with this later.
Come on, Caleb.
You got to put on, he had enough in his spiritual tank. He obviously had a quiet time this morning. He had enough in his spiritual tank for a death to be withdrawn and a crowd to be ministered to all day.
Right.
I don't know if I would have the spiritual energy for that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would, like early in the morning on campus, I'd get news that a family member died. I don't know if I would finish all the rest of my Bible studies that day and stay on campus and then still, after a full day of losing my physical strength, have enough time to go pray later.
Come on, bro.
But he says, no, this is so important. I'm not going to dismiss it. I'm going to deal with it.
Come on.
He delayed taking care of his heart. So don't stuff stuff, but make memories on the move. Look at this. It says later that night. So that means how long he was praying. Later that night, he was there alone, and the boat was already a considerable distance from the land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. What another memory, right? You know, the two things that, I mean, you could just talk about the secular world, and even you could call it Sunday school or just the phenomenons people hear about Jesus for people that aren't even Christians. You could ask a stranger, hey, tell me a couple things you know about Jesus. Oh, he turned water into wine, he fed 5,000, he walked on water.
Come on.
But did you know that the context of two of these was under the context of him losing someone, wanting to go pray, not being able to pray, and still emotionally giving to handle and love a crowd and feed a crowd, and then he goes and prays. His boat leaves, and it says it's just before dawn. That means it's early in the morning. So early in the morning yesterday, he got the news that his friend died. He stayed all day and served in ministry all day. Later that night, prays all night till early in the morning. Doesn't have a boat ride, so he walks on water.
Come on.
He was making memories on the move.
Come
I think some of the greatest memories are going to come about, and you're going to get tested in hardship.
Yeah.
When a hardship comes, it's actually an opportunity to have one of the most memorable spiritual happenings you can possibly have. I think about some of our missionaries. We've had crazy stories of people on their way to Bible studies and getting mugged or robbed or something horrible happening to people, and yet they shake themselves off and still go and do the Bible study and baptize the person.
Wow. Come on.
And they're just making great memories. You know, I'm so thankful for the memories we have in the South and all the memories we'll be able to have together.
Yeah. Come on.
If you've been over to my house, you know I like hot sauce.
Oh, yeah.
And a few of you have had my hot sauce. It's a hot sauce that will turn you into a non-Christian in under 30 seconds.
Yes.
You lose all sight of God. You're like, this is what hell feels like. Like, I repent, you know. But it will turn you into a non-Christian in under 30 seconds. We've had memories of that. We went on a great camping trip, and didn't we have some good memories camping? I learned some things about Adolfo and Caroline that night. Yeah. It was a pretty fun time. You know, I appreciate Tim as a great example. He has the idea, in the midst of leading a world sector, he's like, I'm going to grab people, and we're going to go on a marathon. And he walks for dozens of miles, and he's done it a couple of times. And he usually tries to pick people that he could crush spiritually. He's like, Gavin needs a nice crushing. So we just crush this guy. No, just kidding. But he's making memories on the move, and handling phone calls and praying, and he's making memories. We got to realize that Christianity is exciting, and being radical is the funnest way to live this life.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to be here a little bit, guys. Just a little bit. And these guys were like, okay, we're tired. Let's send the people away. And he's like, no, let's make a memory. Let's do something memorable. Let's change the course of history here. Let's do something radical. Let's do something crazy. Let's feed them. And I think that's just going to the next level. You know, when you finish a Bible study with somebody, sometimes you can just say, hey, what are you doing right now? You want to go eat? I appreciate some of the guys after a Bible study, like Gavin and Chase or Jacob, they're like, after the Bible study, what are you doing tonight? They're like, nothing. You want to go work out with us? And they turn it into another thing, and then after that, it's, do you want to come over and hang out, or do you want to come over and watch a movie? And it's about making memories and making Christianity exciting. You guys with me?
Yeah.
He made memories on the move. You know, I also think about in Acts 16, when Paul and Silas were in prison, it was midnight, and they're like, let's sing. I got an idea. Let's sing. And we've done that on campus. We'll sing in campus, or just do something crazy. Like, let's sing. The jail doors break open, and they baptize the guy and his family. Just because they decided, they could have just sat there and waited, but they said, let's sing. You got to do radical stuff and make memories on the move. Point 3. Let's turn to Matthew 9.
With you, bro. No.
You know, last thing I see that Jesus was full of, that we ought to imitate and soak up. Jesus slipped away to the secret place. He made memories on the move. Point 3, Jesus was full of compassion in action. Jesus was full of compassion in action. You know, I think there's a inactive compassion out there. There is compassion we all feel that doesn't lead us to action, right? You've ever seen one of those infomercials for like abandoned animals or abandoned dogs? It's like, in the arms of an angel. It's like a dog with no hair, and it's like in a cardboard box, and you're like, oh my gosh. Click. You go to the next channel. Very few, seriously, that's what you do. You feel bad for a moment. But very few people watch that. They're like, oh, I feel compassion. Okay, I'm going to go adopt a border collie. You know, it's like, you don't just, not everyone leads to action because of their compassion. I want to inspire you that a compassion that doesn't overflow is a compassion wasted.
Wow.
If the compassion dies with you, what is it?
Yeah.
It's just a feeling. But when your compassion leads to action, it's compassion when someone feels it.
Come on, bro.
And Jesus had a compassion on people that overflowed, that they could feel it too. Look at this in Matthew 9. We'll close here.
Come on, bro.
Matthew 9:35.
Come on, Caleb.
It says, Jesus went through all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them, because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. So ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field. Jesus was full of compassion in action. He was going through the towns, and you know, I think we ought to pray for this kind of discernment, that Jesus was able to see people's spiritual condition.
Yeah.
You know, when you're walking through the grocery store and you see somebody that just looks like they came from a fresh workout, and they have a great physique, and they're maybe clearly buying some supplements or some groceries to continue the idol of their own body, you know, whatever it is, you know, you're like, oh, that guy looks like he's doing okay. You know, and then you see a husband and a wife, they're walking, they got their kids, and the kid asks for cereal, and he puts it in the basket, and you're like, oh, a nice little family, they're doing okay. And then you see a couple campus people, and it's a Friday night, and they're all going to go to Ralph's, and they grab their alcohol, and they all are kind of chopping it up, and you're like, oh, they seem okay. But Jesus was able to see through all that.
Yeah.
Come on.
He saw through it, and he said, you people are harassed. And in fact, you're helpless. You're getting harassed. And the people that you think are your friends aren't helping you. They're actually harassing you.
Come on.
And he says, you're just like a sheep without a shepherd. We got to pray like Psalm 13 says, pray to see what God sees.
Right. Come on,
You get
bro.
compassion in action. I think an inactive evangelistic disciple just doesn't see things and see people the way God sees them.
Yeah.
You don't need to get mad at each other. It's just you got to pray for a deeper discernment. You got to pray to see people
Okay.
for
Come
how they're
on,
really
bro.
doing. You got to see people for the truth. You got to be able to see past it. And you know,
Yeah.
sometimes you don't see it. I noticed what it says is he was teaching, he was preaching, he was healing, and then he had compassion.
Yeah.
After engaging in interactions and he was encountering with the people, then he had compassion on them. Which tells you that you actually can't see most things from first glance.
Right.
You only can see things once you begin to engage with someone.
Come on, bro.
You know, everyone looks fine until I start talking to them.
Right.
Oh.
Right.
And then I start talking to them, and I'm asking them, like, hey, tell me about your life. Tell me, you grew up around God. And I hear that you didn't grow up around God, and you didn't grow up around church. And then maybe I hear, they share you can hear people's life story in under 2 minutes. They're like, yeah, my parents got a divorce. My dad was a pastor. He was a hypocrite. I don't believe in all that. And you're like, wow, I have compassion for you.
Yeah.
You grew up with, I'm not going to say it, but that's horrible, man. I have compassion for you. It sounds like a life without God and without your parents being in the same house. That's a life of harassment. You've been harassed. And in fact, you're helpless. Like, you can hear, they're like, yeah, it's kind of still this way. Almost nobody shares their upbringing, and they're like, and almost nobody, when you meet them, shares how things have gotten better. They're like, yeah, I grew up like this, and it's kind of still like that. I have compassion for you. And but that doesn't happen until you open your mouth, until you share, until you teach, and you get in an environment with someone where you can hear them and then have compassion on them. Are you with me right here? It's got to lead you to action, but I got to inspire you. Open your mouth so that other people can open up their heart.
Come on,
You gotta open your
Caleb.
mouth. And he opened his mouth, and then in the midst of the crowd, he then had compassion. You know, I think about all the people that have been converted this last year. All the people that have studied the Bible and been baptized. I'm just so thankful for the group that we have and all the converts we've had. So thankful for all the people that have moved in or been restored or placed membership. And we just have had such good memories of people putting compassion in action. You know, I think about Lance and Connie.
Yeah.
And getting Donna here,
Yeah.
Connie's mom, and bringing her out to services and bringing her to staff. That's compassion in action.
Yeah.
Lance looked at his sister and said, you know what, I want to move you and your daughter out here. And now we have Maria and Nevaeh here in the house.
Yeah.
Compassion in action.
Yeah.
You know, I love Tara's whole family.
Yeah.
And Tara is constantly giving compassion and action. She says, I want you to come to church.
Come on.
You know, I'm so thankful, guys, just for the incredible, I'm so thankful that we have Florencio in the house with his new baby boy. We got our new sister who just had her baby. And it overflowed because now Ariana's mom is a disciple and she got baptized. And that's compassion in action.
Come on.
I'm so thankful for the examples of compassion in action, but you ought to be inspired and be stirred. Never stop opening your mouth. Because people are never going to stop getting harassed. And until you help them, they're never going to get helped.
Come on, Caleb.
You know, guys, I think as I close out in this out, I just recalled what I've learned the last 7 years. And these things have truly helped my heart. You know, you're in the swirl of LA. This is the Jerusalem of LA. And sometimes it can be so hard to remember to do these things. It can be so hard to, you know, you can be so busy. My quiet times have hit the fan. Who knows how many times I've had so many fits and starts where I was doing really good in my quiet times, and then they get bad, and then they get good and get bad. If you could get that on straight, you're going to do very well.
Come on.
You know, if you could remember to enjoy yourself and make memories, man, that's changed my life. Just being able to enjoy being a disciple. Tim told me years ago, and I didn't understand what he meant. He said, yeah, I just learned to enjoy cooking, learned to enjoy the small interactions, you know, learned to enjoy this and that, and, you know, I like to write books, and you just learned to enjoy the little things. I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. You need, and it says in Ecclesiastes, find enjoyment in your work.
Amen.
Find enjoyment in your toil.
Yeah.
He's found it, and I was like, it took me a while to find it, to learn how to make memories on the move.
Come on, Caleb.
And I want to inspire you, never stop giving your heart. Never stop giving your heart to the next person.
Yeah.
Never stop making a new friend. You don't have the friend group that you think you have, you know what I'm saying? Because that friend could get sent tomorrow. Are you with me?
Right.
Never want to stop making friends and making new memories. And lastly, full of compassion and action. You know, my weakest times as a disciple is when my mouth was closed in public.
Come on, bro.
And it hurts you. It
Yeah,
hurts you
it's
because you
real.
disconnect from the world,
Mark
you
Caleb.
disconnect from God, and pretty
Come on,
soon you're
bro.
just coexisting in the kingdom, and you lack purpose and you lack pleasure. But you were made for pleasure. God has a pleasure for you. It's called heaven.
Come
And I
on.
think all the sins of this life and all the dopamine experiences you could have, I think are samples that God allows to be on the earth. I think they're a sample of what heaven may actually feel like. I believe that. Like little substances and little pleasures and little experiences and a little sexual outlet. Those are all little toys and little samples and little 10-second little previews of what you can have for eternity. But he's like, go ahead, take the samples or take the kingdom buffet, the banquet.
Come on, bro.
And compassion in action is just getting people unhooked from all these temporary minute-made pleasures, minute-made Band-Aid, duct tape type situations that people are putting themselves together in.
Come on, bro.
And I want to get people
Talk
free from
about
that
it.
in the church and out of the church.
Yes.
Compassion in action.
Come on,
All the
Caleb.
memories of the people we got to share with and study with. And those are some of the best memories is
Yeah.
being together with you guys and studying the Bible. Being together with you guys and helping people return prodigal sons and prodigal daughters. And getting people to prevent them from falling over the edge when they felt like they had no faith for their relationship with God. The compassion in action is some of the best memories I have with all of you guys. You know, I want this to be a great summer.
Yeah.
I want this to be a summer that you don't just get more tan. I want this to be a summer that you don't just go try more food spots or go to the beach a few times. And I want this to be a real summer that you decide to soak Jesus up.
Come on,
Soak up the
Caleb.
areas that Jesus fulfilled. He prayed for all of us that he would want us to be with him, like him, and experience the love that he had before the creation of the world. How are we going to do that? We got to often slip away to the secret place. We got to often make memories while on the move. Are you with me right there?
Yes.
No matter where you are, in between work, before Devo, after Devo, before midweek, after midweek. Often make memories
Come
on the move.
on.
And wherever you go, let your compassion overflow to action. Let's soak up the sun. To God be all the glory.